Uh, Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is actually our honor to be here, and I would like to thank MPOCC for giving us the opportunity to introduce our organization, as well as the scheme that we have been tasked to operate. So basically, MPOCC is a company that has been registered under the Companies Act. It was incorporated in December 2014, and I took on the job of leading this organization to operate the MSPO certification scheme. So we started operations in October 2015. We are relatively new in that sense. We are funded by the Promotion Fund for Oil Palm. And we are governed by a 13-member board of trustees. The representation on the board comes from various stakeholders. We have representatives from the oil palm industry itself, academia, R&D institutions. We have smallholders organization. We have also government, the regulators, MPOB and MPIC is there. NGOs who are involved with the issues related to oil palm, and of course also from the civil society. So at the moment, we have 11 members who have been appointed. They come from the various stakeholder groups which I just mentioned. Okay. These are representations from the industry, both upstream and downstream, and of course also from the smallholders and the indigenous people organizations. Our vision to be recognized as a leading organization for palm oil certification, and our mission, our main task is to establish and operate a credible and internationally recognized national palm oil certification scheme towards promoting sustainable management of oil palm in Malaysia. So basically the key word here is a national scheme, and this is our task to make sure that it involves all the relevant stakeholders within the country. The scheme itself provides for application by potential clients for certification audits. Okay, so this will be audits both for oil palm certification as well as for supply chain certification. We also have a system where we accredit and notify certification bodies. Of course, we work with Department of Standards Malaysia as far as accreditation is concerned. We have a supply chain traceability, a mechanism for handling of complaints. We also develop certification standards and scheme documents as and when needed. Peer reviewing of audit reports is a critical component in the certification process. Issuance of logo usage licenses, this will allow certificate holders to apply for logo licenses, and they will be given the right to use the MSPO and MPOCC logos on the certified products. And of course, very importantly, since MSPO certification is still new, we need to provide for training and briefing to auditors as well as all the other stakeholders, especially entities, companies that will want to go for MSPO certification. The standards itself, okay, there was a process a couple of years ago, starting somewhere in 2011, where the MSPO standards were developed through the Technical Working Group on MSPO and also the National Committee on MSPO. These two committees were facilitated by MPOB, who basically is the standards writing organization for oil palm industry standards. So this process went through for about 2 years, and in November 2013, the MSPO series, which is referred to as MS 2530 2013 series, made up of 4 parts. This was then introduced as or launched as the MSPO standards for the certification scheme. So if you look at the parts itself, part 1 basically just touches on the general principles. These are non-auditable, but they are reflected in all the other 3 parts. Part 2 basically are the principles for independent smallholders. So the scheme basically caters specifically for smallholders. We also have part 3 there for oil palm plantations and organized smallholders, and of course part 4 are the general principles for the palm oil mills. What do the standards cover? Basically, the 7 principles that we are dealing with, and of course, these are reflected by way of through the economic, social, and environmental aspects of sustainability. So, you are looking at management commitment and responsibility. You look at transparency, compliance to legal requirements, the social responsibility itself, health, safety, and employment conditions of workers and people around, the environment, natural resources, biod and ecosystem services. Very importantly, the best management practices that you should employ if you want to get yourself certified, and of course, development of new plantings. This is just a tabulated numericals here to show you the number of principles, criteria, and indicators that for the different parts. You'll see that the smallholders have a limited number of indicators as compared to large companies who have to meet more requirements. Our progress of work so far, since the launching of the MSPO standards in November 2013, a number of pilot audits have been conducted. And these have been conducted by CBs who are registered with MPOB as long as they fulfill certain requirements of MPOB. But having taken over the task of further developing the scheme, we have then worked now with the Department of Standards Malaysia, DSM, to come up with the accreditation program for certification bodies who would like to operate under our MSPO scheme. So for the first round, we have already got in place the accreditation program for certification bodies who would like to carry out oil palm management certification under the MSPO scheme. And our next step now is to develop a similar accreditation program for supply chain certification, right? So just for your information, we have got 3 certification bodies who have already submitted what DSM refers to as full submission or full application to DSM for accreditation purposes, and they will be very soon carried out compliance audit for accreditation. Okay. A little bit on stacks, as all of you all know already by now. In Malaysia itself, we have more than 5 million hectares, 5.64 million hectares planted with oil palm, and this is the breakdown according to the 3 regions, Sabah, Sarawak, and Peninsula, 154, 1.44 in Sarawak, and a bit almost double in Peninsular Malaysia. And with a capacity of nearly 20 million tons of CPO production. Where we are in terms of certification, we have got since 2014, 2015, and until now, the latest figures, September 2016, we have got nearly 200,000 hectares already MSPO certified. The figures are there. Large companies, we have 13. SPOCs are sustainable palm oil clusters, and we have 9 clusters that have already been certified, more than 5,000 hectares. We have 20 mills that have been certified. Okay, these are all against the requirements of Part 4, okay, and they have a production capacity of more than 500,000 metric tons. Okay, and of course the palm kernel oil production also is about 120,000 tons. Okay, the 13 companies that are certified, they are all listed here, and many of their areas are already certified under MSPO. Okay, the 9 SPOCs that we have so far, they are also listed here. The details are here, totaling about 5,300 odd hectares. Our challenges, very importantly, the recognition and acceptance of the MSPO scheme. Okay, especially in key markets for Malaysian palm oil and palm oil products. And here we are looking mainly with markets that are sensitive to environmental issues such as EU, the US, America, and the Australians, and so forth. Okay, the use of the MSPO standards that were developed with limited stakeholder participation. This is another challenge for us to inform the interested parties that the MSPO standards are no inferior to any other standards that are available for sustainability. Okay, so this is also something that we have to work on. The uptake of MSPO certification, so far it has been rather slow. Not that it is not superior or anything like that, but it is basically we have been in the transition period where we have been moving from the previous setup to a setup now under MPOCC. Most likely, as we approach the end of the year, early next year, we are really hopeful that there will be a substantial increase in the uptake of MSPO certification. And that has been quite convincing through our briefing sessions and also providing some training to potential clients. Now, we are also looking at incentives for companies, incentives for entities to embrace certification. So these are some of the things that we have on the table to further deal with, whether with its policy matters or whether it is otherwise. Okay, future direction. Basically, very importantly, to intensify the promotion of MSPO scheme. We also need to enhance collaboration with the relevant agencies and stakeholders. Very importantly, we need to strengthen the MSPO standards and the scheme documents. This, we need to get involved more and more stakeholders into these processes. This is a step-by-step process. Okay, so it takes time. We can't do it in a very rushed manner. It involves stakeholders, it involves building up confidence and so forth. So these are some of the things that we will have to do. Now basically raise profile of the scheme through increased collaboration with the relevant parties, both local and international. We were in Warsaw last week, and I think Dr. Sundran mentioned something there, that the proliferation of almost 11 different certification schemes. Yes, we were there as one of the schemes, a national scheme. These are things that we have to go on with, see, to make sure that the stakeholders, whether they are the potential clients, the companies, or the stakeholders who have interest in buying Malaysian palm oil, certified palm oil, they know exactly the processes involved in certification of plantations, in certification of the product itself. Increase awareness of MSPO certification among all stakeholders, both local and foreign. We need to facilitate broader engagement with the environmental and social NGOs, particularly in standard development and revision. We will slowly be moving into revision of the standards as we go along. We need to implement it over the next couple of years. And as you know, standards once every 5 years need to be reviewed. And this is a process which MPOCC will undertake as we move along. We need to enhance collaboration with industry players, agencies and other stakeholders, particularly the smallholders. Smallholders are a very critical component of the whole system. In fact, a lot of emphasis is being given to smallholders. We have a process where we are trying to group the smallholders into SPOCs, like what I mentioned to you, there are a number of SPOCs that have already been certified. Sustainable palm oil clusters. So these clusters are the ones that will go for certifications once they are ready to be audited. Okay, so that process of grouping them together, providing them with information about the scheme, the standard, the requirements of the standard, this is being undertaken by the Malaysian Palm Oil Board, MPOB. MPOB has a dedicated fund for this purpose, right? And also we need to increase the competency of auditors for the scheme, particularly through regular training and all that. Auditors are very important. The whole process of auditing has to be very critical. It has to be very professionally done. Okay, and that is why the accreditation program for certification bodies involves compliance with 3 very important aspects, or in fact 4. The competency of auditors, this is dedicated through the requirements by DSM. Only competent auditors will be allowed to undertake MSPO auditing. Peer reviewing is another process where auditors have to be very knowledgeable about peer reviewing. Okay, so peer reviewing is like giving a second opinion on the work that is done by the auditors. So every main audit will require two peer reviews. Okay, this is something that we are very strict with, and this will provide confidence to the quality of the audit itself. And very importantly also, certification bodies need to know how to conduct stakeholder consultations. So one of the requirements there is for certification bodies to be well versed with the processes involving stakeholder consultations. And these stakeholder consultations are pre-audit, during audit, and post-audit. So these are some of the details. I'm not going to go through details of the technical requirements, but these are some of the things that we have put in place so that whichever certification body gets accredited by Department of Standards Malaysia, which is a national accreditation body, will be in compliance with these requirements. Okay, so in conclusion, the MSPO standards basically to become credible, sustainable standards for the oil palm industry. We are working very hard towards that. The standards adopt best management practices for existing plantations and also for new plantings. And the standards development and review process with thresholds to be done through a much broader stakeholder engagement process, right? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Mr. Harnarinder Singh for being our final presenter for today. We do have a little bit of time for any questions. So we have a short question and answer session. Yes, we have one question here in the front.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Singh, for a fine presentation. Is the standard meant only to be used in Malaysia or for some of the companies in Africa? Can we take your help for those governments to be able to learn from your experience?
Okay, as the title itself is Malaysian Sustainable Palm Oil Standards. So these standards have been developed by Malaysian stakeholders against a framework of that 7 principles, right? There are certain developments now which are taking place, and one of that was mentioned in one of the earlier presentations, where both Malaysia and Indonesia, being responsible for more than 80% of oil palm production, both countries have now set up CPOPC, the Council for the for palm oil producing countries, right? So this is a council for basically palm oil producing countries, and there is work that is being done under that agenda, right? How standards are developed is basically if countries or if in organizations can agree to a common framework, which generally will refer to principles and criteria. That is a framework. See, basically any standard that wants to be used for sustainability auditing will have to fulfill this criteria, these principles, these criteria. Standards normally are developed by individual countries. They become national standards. See? So there is effort towards trying to come up with the international framework of principles and criteria, and that work I think will be undertaken by the CPOPC. See? So there's no reason why we can't help other countries to develop standards. See? So it has been done. I have many years of experience with timber certification, where many countries in this ASEAN region basically had seek help from us to develop their framework, and further on using their internal relevant stakeholders to further elaborate and develop their own national standards. See? So there are processes involved in developing national standards. We are ever ready to provide you with further information on this. Please do contact us.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other hands coming. Oh, we do? Okay, one more question.
I wonder how many percent will be the targeted for all Malaysian producers to be certified someday? Is it any target number?
Very interesting. If you go by the target number, we would like all plantings in Malaysia to be MSPO certified one day. See? But for the near future, basically we are looking at many of the planted areas, companies that do export palm oil and palm oil products. See? And this, because there's the demand for certified products by the key markets for Malaysian palm oil. See? So, there is discussion now at the highest level whether we should make MSPO mandatory, whether we should have a sort of a time frame for many of the plantings to embrace MSPO certification. See? So it is not a process where every planting will eventually be certified, even though we hope that that could be the case. In certification, you will have some, like they say, just like in college, some dropouts. Not everybody can qualify, can meet the stringent requirements of sustainability. See? So they will be left out from the whole process. But we are still hopeful that whatever plantings that we have, and even any of the new plantings that come in, will be certifiable.
The second question is related with the technical one.
Yeah.
How long is the process that certain stakeholder to be certified, and how long is the validity of the certificate anyway?
Okay, in certification itself, there are two levels that you must always consider. One is how prepared are you to undergo auditing for certification. You see, now if your house is not in order, it will take you very long to bring your plantings, your organization to a level that then you can invite the independent auditors to come in to certify your entity. Now, we have another document under the accreditation program which caters towards audit duration. That depends on the size, capacity, and so forth of your entity, of your company. How large is your area, and how complicated are the issues when the auditors go in. So all that is contained in that document. Normally, a large plantation, about 5 working days, involving an audit team of, say, 3 auditors. So 5 times 3, you're looking at about 15 to 20 man days sort of thing, right? But that is audit itself. But to bring you to a level where you can be audited, it depends on the state of affairs in your entity itself. See? The certificate is valid for 5 years, but is subject to annual surveillance. So it is not something that is one-off. You have to be monitored. Okay, this is what we call continued compliance to the requirements of the standard, and continued compliance comes by way of surveillance audits. Okay, so every year the auditors will come back to your certified entity to audit, but this is not a full audit. Normally, issues that were raised earlier in the main audit, some of the new issues that may crop up through that 12-month period. These are the issues that are normally addressed during the surveillance audits, just to make sure that you are complying, you keep on complying with the requirements of the standard, right? So it is a 5-year certificate, but annual surveillance.
Thank you very much.